So it was another pretty extraordinary meeting at the White House. Depending on how you see things, it was an example of open house democracy that Donald Trump enjoys, or it was another Oval Office ambush, rather like that of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a few weeks ago. This time it was the South African leader, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was the focus of Donald Trump's attack. The US president insisting that white farmers in South Africa are the victims of a genocide, a suggestion that has, by the way, been widely discredited. Well, last week, a group of more than 50 white South African farmers arrived in the United States as refugees, welcomed in by the Trump administration. Today's meeting at the White House started off cordially enough, but soon President Trump told his staff to dim the lights and play a video to the South African leader, which he said verified his claims about the killings of white farmers. Here's some of that exchange, starting off with Cyril Ramaphosa talking about how he planned to discuss the matter with the US president.
So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have thousands of stories talking about it.
Sure.
And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that. Is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. But we're starting with this whiteness. We're cutting the throat of whiteness. Shoot, kill, Yamaza, kill the brewer, the farmer, kill the brewer, the farmer. Bah! 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 Shoot to kill! Yamaza! Kill the poor! The farmer! Kill the poor! The farmer! Bah!
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites, over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No. I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. I don't. Okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa, that's where.
We'll need to find out.
Thank you so much, President Trump, Anna Disaster from ENCA in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've
don't
just
know.
seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that
To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you.
No, I'd like
So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently. And
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. Yeah,
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
but you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
And then
take
when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens to
There
them.
is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The
been
farmers are
utilized.
black. The farmers are not black.
We
I
are
don't
now-
say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off, they died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't
we
know
will
we'd get
talk about it.
involved here. But I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that.
Well, that's just a flavour of that meeting in the Oval Office a little bit earlier on. In fact, in the last couple of minutes, we've heard from Cyril Ramaphosa, the South African president, saying that his meeting with Donald Trump went, quote, very well. Well, our South Africa correspondent, Phumza Filani, was following that meeting in the Oval Office as it was being broadcast live. She's in Johannesburg, and she explained to us the background behind those claims from the Trump administration that white farmers in South Africa are being persecuted and killed. And also she told us more about exactly what was being shown in that video in the Oval Office.
What we were looking at there were two separate clips, one from an opposition party leader, Julius Malema, who is known here in South African politics for his firebrand narratives around how the economy should be restructured to more favorably suit black South Africans, saying that the government of Nelson Mandela over the years had not done enough to tilt the power balance. So he is incredibly divisive in South Africa. A lot of people have said, and perhaps is the reason why his party is not in government currently. And the other clip was of former President Jacob Zuma, who went on, after he was sacked from the African National Congress, went on to form a political party. That political party did fairly well in the recent elections here, so he does have a following. But again, he's also a party that isn't part of the current government. Those two parties remain in opposition politics. The president going to great lengths there in that interaction with President Trump, trying to say that each of the policies or the views expressed in those two clips are not part of the policies followed by South Africa, that if anything, the thing that their party has advocated for over the years was working together across racial lines. And this would perhaps explain why you had a mixed delegation, not just of that Afrikaner political party leader, John Steenhuisen, but also on the fringes of that businessmen who have amassed great wealth here in South Africa over the years, who continue to enjoy business successfully here. You would have heard in those clips a number of the South African delegations saying that in fact South Africa has a crime problem, that South Africa does not have a white genocide problem, but does really have a crime problem, and that if there's any way that countries like the US can partner either on intelligence or surveillance or infrastructure, that would go a great deal towards solving that crime problem. But if we get stuck on a numbers game, it becomes then a difficult question, because how do you then say which lives matter than which ones? And if we start looking at kind of being drawn into that conversation, a number of South Africans, particularly the majority of black South Africans, will want you to know that crime disproportionately still affects them. What you've had over the years is a principle called willing buyer, willing seller, which is that the government will make an offer. If the farmer accepts, then a price will be agreed. Sometimes there's been even criticism that those prices have been inflated, but because that land the government believes is needed and can be put to a different kind of use, either through building housing for the majority of people that are without houses, that they're usually willing to pay those costs. So as it stands, there are no land seizures in South Africa, is what security groups have repeatedly said, and what the South African government has repeatedly said also over the years.
That's our South Africa correspondent, Phumza Fulani, there with some important context, I think, there in terms of those claims that President Trump was making about the killing of white farmers in South Africa. Let's go live to Washington now and speak to our correspondent there, Jake Kwon. Jake, well, we saw it first with President Zelensky. Now we've seen it with President Ramaphosa, kind of roasting in the Oval Office. It's a new kind of politics, isn't it? A new kind of diplomacy.
Certainly, I think anybody who's watching this scene happening today will be thinking back to that awful scene in February when President Zelensky was in the Oval Office. And I think the difference here is that when that berating, when that altercation, that verbal jousting was happening in the Oval Office back then, it seemed somewhat unplanned that the people who were involved were getting heated, somewhat improvised. But like today, it seemed that Mr. Trump came to the office with the full understanding that there will be this ambush of the President Ramaphosa. The TV screen that wasn't usually in the Oval Office was brought in. He had dimmed the light and then started playing this video. Everything was very carefully planned, and he knew that he would be antagonizing and trying to catch the South African president in this very difficult situation. And what seemed like a very cordial meeting had quickly frozen over as the video was playing. I think Mr. Ramaphosa actually did a very good job not playing into the conversation. He remained very calm and gently pushed back on the idea. I think there was also a very clever bringing of the right delegation. Mr. Trump is someone who really enjoys these golfing, and he enjoys winners, and what's even better, winning golfers. So there were two champion golfers in that room who related their story, and they gently pushed back on Mr. Trump's narrative, and it really broke the tension a little bit. And I think his other ministers also brought up this very important point that these the radical people who were featured in the video are not part of the government. They're in fact considered part of a minority party who is considered fringe in the South African politics. So I think Mr. Ramaphosa did a very good job handling this very unforeseen situation.
Yeah, another extraordinary day in the White House. There are so many these days. Jake, thanks very much indeed. We'll be discussing that Oval Office more in the coming hour and on the context. But around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News, so do stay tuned.